Humans, one of the council members sneered. They're nothing but a bunch of primitives. Their technology is laughable. What could they possibly do to stop us?
Another member, a tall, gray-skinned alien with 4 eyes, nodded in agreement.
I agree. I've seen their ships.
They are nothing compared to our warships.
We could send a single fleet to destroy them, and the problem would be solved.
The leader of the council, a cold and calculating figure, raised a hand to silence the room. His voice was smooth but carried a sharp authority.
I want this resolved quickly.
Send the invasion fleet to Earth.
I want those humans on their knees. Let's remind them who rules this galaxy.
A few members exchanged uncertain glances, but no one dared to speak up.
The Empire's power was absolute, and everyone knew it. No one had ever stood up to them and won. As the meeting ended, the orders were given to assemble the fleet.
The Empire's warships, massive ships with black metallic hulls and deadly weapons, began to gather at the edge of Earth's solar system.
They were unstoppable. The Council didn't even expect any resistance. After all, Earth was a backwater planet. Its people were primitive, with no understanding of true power. The Empire's soldiers were confident that this would be an easy conquest, just like all the others before it. But there was one thing the Empire had completely underestimated: the humans. They didn't know it yet, but Earth was hiding something that could change everything. Something ancient. Something powerful.
Meanwhile, on Earth, the human leaders were watching. They had heard rumors of the Empire's ruthless conquest of other planets. They knew that their time was running out. The aliens wouldn't stop until they had conquered Earth, and they didn't have the strength to fight the Empire head-on with their current technology. But what the Empire didn't know was that Earth wasn't as weak as it seemed. In a hidden underground facility, deep beneath the surface of the planet, a team of engineers and military officials gathered around a large, dusty archive. The archive contained ancient data from a time long forgotten by most humans, a time when humanity was not a small, insignificant species, but the rulers of the stars. The team had been working for years, digging through Earth's history, trying to unlock the secrets of their ancestors. They had discovered that long before the Galactic Empire ever existed, humanity had been the dominant power in the galaxy. But for reasons lost to history, they had disappeared from the galactic stage. Their advanced fleets, their technology, their weapons, all of it had been hidden away, locked in places no one had thought to look. Now, with the Empire bearing down on them, Earth's leaders had no choice but to reveal their hidden history. They knew they couldn't win the war with their current technology, but there was something that might give them a fighting chance. An ancient fleet of dreadnoughts, massive warships that once belonged to Earth's ancient empire. The team worked tirelessly, unlocking the secrets to activate the ancient ships. They dug through old blueprints, decrypted old codes, and rebuilt the forgotten systems. It was a race against time. The Galactic Empire's fleet was already on its way, and Earth's defenses were far too weak to hold them off. The ancient dreadnoughts were their only hope. As the first dreadnought slowly powered up, the team couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. These ships were no ordinary vessels. They were giant ancient war machines designed for one purpose: to dominate. Armed with weapons far more powerful than anything the Galactic Empire had, these ships could change the course of the war. But as the dreadnoughts came online, Earth's leaders knew they couldn't just sit back and wait. They had to be ready. The Galactic Empire wouldn't give them a second chance. They had to act fast, or humanity would be destroyed before it even had a chance to fight back. The countdown had begun. The Galactic Empire was on its way, and Earth was about to reveal its hidden power. The universe had no idea what was coming. As the Galactic Empire's fleet approached, Earth's leaders knew they had only one chance to save their planet. The Empire's ships were vast and powerful, each one capable of destroying an entire city with a single strike. The people of Earth were outmatched. They had no spacefaring fleets, no advanced weapons, and no real way to fight back against an empire that had crushed countless civilizations in the galaxy. It felt like all hope was lost. But what the Empire didn't know was that Earth's leaders had been working in secret for years, unlocking ancient technology hidden deep beneath the surface of the planet. For decades, a group of the world's best engineers, scientists, and military officers had been researching the long-lost history of humanity's forgotten past. They had discovered that humans weren't always the small, unremarkable species at the edge of the galaxy. In fact, long before the rise of the Galactic Empire, humans had ruled the stars. They had built an empire that stretched across the galaxy, and they had left behind a fleet of powerful warships, dreadnoughts that were unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. The problem was, no one knew how to activate these ancient warships. The technology was old, far older than anything in use today, and the blueprints for these ships had been lost to time. The few people who remembered the old ways were long gone, and the knowledge of how to use the ships was scattered in dusty archives, buried in forgotten bunkers. But now, with the Empire's invasion looming, Earth's leaders had no choice but to rely on these old ships. They needed the dreadnoughts if they were going to stand a chance. The hidden facility where the dreadnoughts were stored was located deep beneath the surface of Earth, hidden from all but a select few. The walls of the facility were lined with ancient control panels and enormous storage chambers, where the ships lay dormant, their systems offline, their weapons powered down. The air inside the facility was thick with dust and the smell of old metal. It felt like the place had been abandoned for centuries, but now, the fate of humanity rested on what was hidden inside. Inside the control room, a small group of engineers worked tirelessly, scanning old data, deciphering long-forgotten codes, and piecing together the puzzle of how to bring the dreadnoughts back to life. They had weeks, maybe even days, before the Empire's fleet arrived. It was a race against time. Dr. Emily Johnson, a brilliant but often overlooked scientist, stood at the front of the room, staring at a massive screen filled with incomprehensible symbols. She was the one who had discovered the key to unlocking the Dreadnought systems, a series of ancient codes hidden in Earth's history. But even with the codes, there were problems. The ships were powered by a form of energy that hadn't been used in centuries. The power cores had to be restarted, and the weapons systems had to be recalibrated. It wasn't going to be easy. How much longer until the first ship is ready? General Alexander Reed, the military leader overseeing the project, asked, his voice tight with anxiety. He had fought in countless battles before, but nothing like this. The Empire's fleet was coming, and he knew that Earth's forces were no match for them. "Give us a few more hours," Dr. Johnson replied, her voice steady but filled with stress. "The power cores are charging, and the weapons systems are nearly online. We just need more time." General Reed nodded, though he wasn't sure they had that time. The Galactic Empire was ruthless, and they weren't going to wait for humanity to get its act together. Earth's defenses were practically non-existent, and if they couldn't get the dreadnoughts up and running, it was only a matter of time before the Empire arrived and destroyed everything. Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, the government was preparing for the worst. Civilians were being evacuated from major cities. Shelters were being built, and underground bunkers were stocked with food, water, and medical supplies. The military was in chaos, trying to prepare for an invasion they knew they couldn't win. Earth's armies were small, and their weapons were outdated compared to the power of the Empire. But the mood was different in the secret facility where the dreadnoughts lay dormant. There, the atmosphere was tense, but there was also a sense of hope that they could bring humanity's forgotten power back to life. They knew they were running out of time, but they also knew that the dreadnoughts, once activated, would be their only hope of survival. As the hours passed, the team worked with incredible focus. The codes were finally cracked, and the first dreadnought began to power up. The massive warship, long dormant, slowly hummed to life. Lights flickered on inside the control room, and the ship's enormous engines roared to life. It was a slow process, but the ship was finally operational. The dreadnought's exterior was a sight to behold. It was enormous, far larger than any ship the Empire had ever built. Its hull was a dark, metallic blue, covered in intricate designs and patterns that were as beautiful as they were functional. The weapons systems, laser cannons, missile launchers, and plasma beams flickered on, charging to full power. Dr. Johnson and General Reed watched in awe as the ship began to take shape. This was it. Humanity's last hope. "The first ship is ready," Dr. Johnson said, a small smile crossing her face. "We've done it. Now we just have to wake up the rest of the fleet." As she spoke, the ground shook slightly, and the sound of massive engines starting filled the air.
The first of many dreadnoughts was now ready to defend Earth, and with each passing minute, more ships were coming online.
The Empire would soon learn that they had made a grave mistake underestimating humanity.
The countdown was on.
The Empire's fleet was only days away, and Earth's defenses were finally starting to take shape.
The last chance for survival had arrived.
The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The Galactic Empire's invasion fleet finally arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, its massive ships cutting through space like a swarm of locusts.
The Empire had never faced resistance like this before.
They were used to conquering planets with little effort, and Earth was no different. They had no idea what was waiting for them. At the heart of the Empire's fleet was the flagship, an enormous battleship, the size of a small moon, surrounded by hundreds of smaller, deadlier warships.
Their weapons were locked and loaded, ready to unleash destruction upon Earth. The Empire's commanders had no doubt in their minds that the planet would fall quickly.
After all, Earth was a primitive, unadvanced world with no chance of defending itself. The council members of the Galactic Empire had been right when they laughed at the humans' defiance. But Earth's leaders, working in secret for years, were about to make the Empire wish they had never come.
While the Empire's fleet advanced, Earth's hidden defense system began to activate. Deep below the surface, the ancient dreadnoughts that had lain dormant for centuries were now coming to life.
One by one, the massive warships powered up, their engines roaring as they prepared to launch into battle. Inside the control room of the secret facility, Dr. Emily Johnson and General Alexander Reed stood side by side, watching the screens flicker to life. The first dreadnought had already left its underground hangar, slowly rising into the sky.
Its massive form was so large that it blocked out the sun as it ascended.
The sheer size of the ship was enough to make anyone watching pause in awe. But this wasn't just a display of power, it was humanity's last chance.
"Are the weapons systems online?"
General Reed asked, his voice tense with anticipation.
Dr. Johnson glanced at the control panel. "They're online, General. The dreadnoughts are fully armed and ready to engage."
The ship's engines roared louder as it reached the edge of Earth's atmosphere, joining the other dreadnoughts that had also begun to rise from their hidden bunkers. The fleet that had once been the pride of humanity was now the only hope for survival.
As the first dreadnought ascended, the rest of Earth's military forces scrambled to prepare for battle. Earth's fighters, tanks, and infantry were no match for the might of the Empire's warships, but they did what they could.
Fighters were launched into space, their small, nimble ships attacking the incoming Imperial fleet. The battle was nothing more than a distraction, a way to buy time for the real forces to prepare. Meanwhile, in space, the Imperial fleet was on the move. Their commanders watched Earth's pitiful attempts to defend itself with little more than amusement. The Imperial warships fired laser beams and missiles at the human fighters, destroying them with ease. The humans' technology was no match for the Empire's advanced weapons.
They were wasting their time.
But then, something unexpected happened.
The first dreadnought fired.
The massive ship unleashed a volley of plasma missiles, sending them hurtling toward the closest Imperial warship.
The Empire's flagship responded with a barrage of energy blasts, but the missiles detonated on impact, sending shockwaves through space.
The Imperial ship's shields flickered, but they held. The Empire's commanders were momentarily stunned.
"What is that?" one of the commanders barked. "That ship, it's not supposed to exist." The dreadnought fired again, this time at a smaller Imperial ship. The plasma beams shot out like lightning, slicing through the smaller warship's shields and tearing into its hull.
The explosion was massive, lighting up the void of space like a star-going supernova.
The Imperial warship was destroyed in an instant.
The Imperial fleet paused. For the first time in their long history of conquests, they were faced with something they hadn't expected, a real challenge. "Deploy more ships," the fleet commander ordered.
"Crush them."
But the Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson. The dreadnoughts weren't just big and powerful, they were designed for this kind of fight.
They were built to stand toe-to-toe with the Empire's best warships and win.
Each dreadnought was armed with weapons capable of cutting through the Empire's shields, and their armor was nearly indestructible. The humans had underestimated the power of their ancient fleet, and now, the tables were turning. Earth's forces weren't sitting idly by either. Fighter jets continued to harass the Imperial ships, launching surprise attacks, distracting the enemy long enough to give the dreadnoughts more time to engage. Tanks and infantry were doing their best to hold ground, preparing for the inevitable invasion that would soon come to Earth's surface. The battle in space raged on. The Empire's fleet, despite its overwhelming numbers, was struggling to hold its ground. The dreadnoughts were tearing through the Imperial ships like a hot knife through butter. The energy beams from the dreadnoughts cut down Imperial fighters and warships alike, each explosion echoing in the vastness of space. The once confident Empire now found itself reeling, as more and more of its ships were destroyed. General Reed watched the battle unfold on the screens, his eyes narrowing with determination.
They're not going to know what hit them.
Dr. Johnson nodded, but she knew the fight was far from over. The Empire still had the advantage in numbers. There were thousands of ships in their fleet, and many of them were still untouched. But Earth had something the Empire didn't: surprise. And now, with the dreadnoughts fully online, humanity had a chance to turn the tide. As the first Imperial warship exploded into 1,000 pieces, Dr. Johnson's heart raced.
It wasn't just a victory for Earth, it was a statement to the galaxy. Humanity wasn't weak.
Humanity wasn't a primitive species to be crushed underfoot.
They were the ones with the power now.
And the Empire would soon learn that underestimating humanity was their biggest mistake. The invasion had only just begun, but the Empire had already made one fatal mistake: they had underestimated Earth. As the battle in space raged on, Earth's ancient fleet continued to surprise the invading Galactic Empire. What the Empire had thought was a mere handful of human warships was only the beginning. The real power of Earth's hidden fleet had yet to be fully unleashed, and the Empire was about to realize their grave mistake.
The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity in a way they would never forget.
They had thought Earth was a primitive planet, one that was no match for their highly advanced forces. But what they didn't know was that Earth had been preparing in secret for centuries. Hidden deep beneath the ground, forgotten by time, lay a fleet of warships that could rival the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. Dr. Emily Johnson stood before the massive control panel in the underground facility, her hands steady as she issued commands. The first dreadnought had already proven its power, but it was just the beginning. She looked to General Reed, who was watching the battle unfold on the large display screen.
"We've only just begun," Dr. Johnson said quietly. General Reed nodded. "It's time to bring the rest online. The Empire won't know what hit them."
One by one, the dormant dreadnoughts, each older and more powerful than the last, began to awaken. These ancient ships had been designed for a time long past, a time when humanity faced threats far greater than the Galactic Empire.
But now, these mighty warships were being called into action once more.
The rumble of their engines shaking the very ground as they powered up sent shockwaves through the facility.
"It's happening," Dr. Johnson said, watching the ships rise from the ground. "The full fleet is coming online."
The first dreadnought had already launched, and now the rest followed. Each ship was a colossus in space, a floating fortress of destruction. As they emerged from their hidden bunkers, their weapons systems powered up, glowing with deadly energy. These ships had been designed not just to fight, but to dominate. Up above in space, the Empire's forces were still trying to regroup after the initial surprise. They had suffered losses, and morale among the Imperial commanders was beginning to crack. They thought they had already crushed the humans' defense, but the dreadnoughts kept coming. The few ships the Empire had sent to engage the human fighters were being destroyed one after another.
"What is going on?" one of the Empire's commanders demanded. "Where are these ships coming from?"
"They're ancient warships," another officer said, looking at the data on his screen. "Ships that were thought to be long dead.
But they're fully operational now." The Empire's fleet was thrown into chaos. The dreadnoughts, now fully powered up, began to move in formation, their massive guns aimed at the remaining Imperial ships. They fired their main cannons, unleashing waves of destruction that obliterated everything in their path.
The Empire's warships, though powerful in their own right, were no match for the sheer size and firepower of the human fleet. "We need to fall back," the Imperial fleet commander ordered, but but it was already too late. The first full volley of plasma blasts from the dreadnought struck the nearest Imperial ship, sending it spiraling into space, its hull torn apart like paper. The shockwaves from the explosion rocked the nearby warships, shaking them to their cores. Another dreadnought fired, sending a barrage of missiles streaking toward the Imperial fleet. The missiles hit their targets with deadly accuracy, tearing through shields and ripping apart ships with ease. From his command center aboard the largest dreadnought, General Reed watched the battle unfold. The dreadnoughts were powerful, but it wasn't just their size that made them so deadly, it was their coordination. The dreadnoughts, designed with cutting-edge technology of their time, were now operating together like a single, unstoppable force. As the Empire's fleet struggled to retaliate, Reed gave the order to launch a full assault. All ships, engage at full power. Destroy everything in our path. The dreadnoughts moved as one, firing their weapons with precision. The skies above Earth became a chaotic battlefield as the human fleet tore into the Imperial forces. The Empire's once proud fleet, with its advanced weaponry and sheer numbers, was now being overrun by a fleet thought to be nothing more than myth. The Empire's commanders, who had once laughed at Earth's chances, now found themselves in a fight for their very survival. Back on Earth, people watched from below as the battle unfolded above them. News reports filled every screen with updates on the progress of the war, but the public had already figured out the truth. Humanity was no longer defenseless. The Empire's overconfidence had been their downfall. Inside the control room, Dr. Johnson and General Reed stood side by side, watching as their dreadnoughts tore through the Empire's fleet. Each ship that exploded in space felt like a victory, not just for Earth, but for humanity's survival. "We've done it," Reed said quietly, his voice filled with a sense of awe. Dr. Johnson smiled, but there was no time to rest. "We've only just begun. We can't stop now. The Empire needs to know this is just the first wave." Above, the sky was filled with the wreckage of Imperial warships. The dreadnoughts, like a rising storm, continued to push forward, cutting through the heart of the Empire's forces. The once proud invaders were now retreating, their ships scattering across space like leaves in a storm. But General Reed knew this wasn't over. The Empire would be back. They wouldn't just let a fleet of dreadnoughts stop their invasion. But Earth had one thing the Empire didn't: resilience. And now, with the full fleet awakened, humanity had the upper hand. The Empire would soon learn that Earth was no easy target, and the humans they had underestimated would be the ones to decide their fate. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but the tide had already started to turn in humanity's favor. The battle for Earth had reached a boiling point. The Galactic Empire, once so sure of their victory, had suffered unimaginable losses at the hands of humanity's newly awakened fleet. What had once seemed like a foolish, desperate defense by the humans had now become a terrifying nightmare for the invaders. Earth was not the weak, primitive planet the Empire had believed. Instead, it was a force to be reckoned with. Inside the command center of Earth's military, General Reed watched as the final phase of the battle played out on the massive screen. The Empire's remaining ships were retreating into the depths of space, their once formidable forces now reduced to scattered remnants. The full power of humanity's ancient fleet, the 800,000 dreadnoughts, had shifted the tide of the war. The Empire's leaders had not only underestimated humanity's strength, but they had also made the fatal mistake of thinking that Earth could be easily conquered. The dreadnoughts, colossal warships with weapons that could obliterate entire fleets, had proven more than a match for the Empire's most advanced technology. With each strike, each explosion, humanity's dominance in space was being re-established. But General Reed knew that this victory was just the beginning. "We've turned the tide," General Reed muttered to himself, watching as one of the last Imperial battleships disappeared into the void. "But there's more to do." Dr. Emily Johnson, standing beside him, nodded. "The Empire won't just give up. They'll regroup, rebuild, and try again. But we've proven something today. We've shown them that we're not just survivors. We're warriors." The words were true. Humanity had always been underestimated by the larger galactic powers. For centuries, Earth had been left in peace, ignored by the wider galaxy, because no one thought Earth had anything of value. But now, after centuries of hidden preparation, humanity had re-emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined.
the Dreadnoughts were just the beginning. Humanity had a vast, untapped arsenal that was only now being fully revealed. But the most powerful weapon humanity had was its resolve. The Empire's defeat was not just a victory on the battlefield. It was a message. A message that Earth was no longer a defenseless planet, ready to be conquered by any force that wandered in. No, Earth was a sleeping giant, and the Empire had awakened it. As the remaining Imperial ships retreated into deep space, Earth's dreadnoughts continued their relentless pursuit. These massive warships weren't just floating tanks, they were symbols of humanity's strength and resilience. Each ship that exploded in space represented a blow to the Empire's arrogance. The humans had returned, and they were no longer afraid. The news broadcasts across Earth were filled with images of the battle, showing the destruction of Imperial ships and the triumph of humanity's hidden fleet. People all over the world watched with awe as their ancestors' technology, long thought to be relics of the past, had brought Earth to the forefront of galactic power. The Empire, which had once mocked the humans as weak and insignificant, now saw the full force of what humanity was capable of. On Earth's surface, celebrations erupted. Cities once shaken by fear now buzzed with excitement. People danced in the streets, their eyes filled with hope for the future. The message was clear: Earth was no longer just a small dot in the vastness of space. It was a force that could not be ignored. Humanity had re-established its place among the stars. But even in the face of this hard-earned victory, General Reed and Dr. Johnson knew that the war wasn't over. The Empire, though broken and scattered, still held tremendous power. They would be back, stronger than ever, seeking revenge for their humiliation. But this time, humanity would be ready. "We need to keep our fleet ready," Dr. Johnson said, her voice steady and determined. "We can't let our guard down. The Empire will rebuild, and they'll come for us again." Reed agreed. "We've sent a message to the galaxy. But we can't rest on our laurels. This is just the beginning of our return to dominance." Humanity's power was undeniable now, and they had no intention of being the prey anymore. Earth had reclaimed its rightful place, not just as a defenseless planet, but as a force that could challenge any empire, any power that sought to control it. The Dreadnoughts, ancient as they were, had given humanity the upper hand, but the true strength of Earth lay in its people. They were resourceful, determined, and willing to fight for their survival. Over the coming months, Earth's forces began to rebuild and expand. The fleet of dreadnoughts, now fully awakened, was just the start. Humanity began to explore the depths of space, finding new allies, new technologies, and new sources of power. Earth was no longer isolated, it was becoming a powerhouse, one that would change the galaxy forever. Meanwhile, the Galactic Empire began to rebuild as well, licking its wounds after the humiliation. But they knew that Earth would no longer be an easy target. The humans had tasted victory, and they would not forget it. They had learned the hard way that Earth was not a planet to be taken lightly. The message was clear across the galaxy now: don't mess with Earth. The once weak, backward planet had shown that when pushed, it would rise to dominate those who dared to threaten it. Earth had returned to its rightful place among the stars, and it was only a matter of time before humanity would take its place as the dominant force in the galaxy. Humanity had proven that it would not be a victim. It would no longer bow to any empire. And this was only the beginning of humanity's reign.